Good morning. I'm going to talk today about metta as awareness. So, the reason I'm going to do that is because metta, or the practice of loving kindness, is often seen in quite a particular way, a way that a lot of people experience as quite effortful and putting a lot of willed effort into the practice of loving kindness, the meditation practice of loving kindness. Well, I find that it puts people off quite a bit. Many people that come along to the Buddhist Centre, they prefer to do mindfulness of breathing. It feels like me time, or, relaxing, not having to do anything, following the breath, relatively simple. But when we come to do the practice of loving kindness, it feels like we've got to bring a lot of things to mind. We've got to jack up our emotional reserves, as it were, and put a lot of effort in. And that is a mistaken view of what the Metta Bhavana is about. I don't think it helps that we talk about cultivating loving kindness, cultivating metta. And as soon as we talk about cultivating or developing, it adds this, even how subtle that is, but quite a lot of effort. We think that effort is involved. So we have to find ways of taking the effort out of meditation, because it's not a very attractive proposition if we think we've got to put a lot of effort in. Of course there is effort, but it's not a willed effort. And that's quite hard to convey, particularly when you're new to meditation. How to put in the right sort of effort that doesn't feel like it's going to wear us out, or we've just got to be there for everybody else when we haven't really looked after ourselves. Whereas the mindfulness of breathing feels more like, well, it's me time, it's time I can just blob out with my breath. But of course, the two practices are very linked together. So mindfulness without metta can actually be rather cold, rather detached. We still might benefit from it, but it doesn't have the warmth that we do need in any and absolutely every meditation. So if we think more of metta as awareness, we're thinking really about clearly seeing, about seeing how things are, about seeing how we are, how the world is, how other people are. And in other words, sort of removing the prejudice, the preferences, the add-ons, everything that we add on. And of course we add on all the time. Everything we come across, every person, every image it initiates, you could say, some kind of like or dislike or immunity to, kind of boredom with. So that's going on all the time. And what the Metta Bhavana really does is to help us see that we are not the centre of the universe, but to really take ourselves in a healthy way, that we are not judging ourselves. We're not seeing ourselves as worse than or better than. We're seeing arising and passing away of all our emotions and our thoughts. In other words, we are hoping to drop into a real open space where we can acknowledge everything that we are with loving kindness. And in a way, that's just a sensitivity to ourselves. That's all it is. So when we're not sensitive to ourselves, there's the judging mind. There's, I can't meditate, or I don't think this practice is any good, or we recap memories that are painful, memories that are pleasant. We make plans. We do all sorts of things. And that is going to happen. That is going to go on in meditation, because we can't just put our thoughts and our feelings to one side. So we need to know what's going on. But at the same time, there's also what you might call an insight element going on all the time as well. It's like when we start judging ourselves, knowing, the knowing mind, knowing awareness, I am judging myself. Knowing that these judgments have been built up over a long time, they're habits, they're ways of seeing ourselves that we've perhaps imbibed from our childhood. So we have a lot of influences going on in our life, our family, our culture, our education, all sorts of things, and things we have chosen to expose ourselves to. So all that has impacted and built up habits and ways of thinking and ways of seeing the world. But those ways are so deep that we don't actually acknowledge they've come from anywhere. They just seem to be our personality, our temperament, the way things are, even how the world is. So we need to recognize that actually these are habits, and those habits can change. Our mind can change. So metta as awareness is initially knowing what is in our mind. And the word for mind in Buddhism is chitta, which is actually not just mind, but mind and heart. Mind and heart. It includes all our thinking habits, our emotional habits, our behaviour habits. So we begin to see that actually we are a bundle of habits. And that needs a lot of loving kindness, a lot of tenderness to hold that fact. So when we practice the Metta Bhavana, we always begin with ourself. And the reason that we begin with ourself is because if we don't have an attitude of loving kindness to ourselves, if that isn't really strong in us, then we're not really going to have much metta for anybody else. So how do we go about that? Well, first of all, we need to have that awareness of what actually is in our mind, and learn also how to turn towards what you might call a heart area, a heart space, our tender spot, our sensitive spot. So we need to be able to tune into that with an open heart and mind. And that sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it isn't simple. And it isn't simple because we've got all sorts of defences, ways of protecting ourselves so that we're not aware. So when we are truly aware, when we are sensitive to ourselves, that is a natural awareness. It's a clear seeing, and it's a warmth, because it takes a lot of courage and tenderness to be able to turn towards everything that we are, everything that we find within ourselves. And that's why with the Metta Bhavana, we first of all need a lot of practice of turning towards everything that we are and learning how to be non-judgmental within that. And that is just by clear seeing. We're no different to anybody else. We've done things we regret. We're not perfect, and it's okay to not be perfect. We don't have to strive to be perfect. So that alone is a big relief when we find we don't have to be perfect. We are all flawed human beings, and we're all simply human. And we have wonderful things about us as well. Wonderful qualities. Everybody has them. So we find that place of interconnectedness, really, where we can relate to ourselves and all human beings as having that possibility for open and endless sensitivity and love. I'll leave it there.